Diolch yn fawr am y cyfle I gyfrannu i'r drafodaeth. At gawn ni'n dweud fy mod yn pryderu'n fawr iawn y byddwn ni ar ein colled mewn llawer ffordd o adael yr Undeb Ewropeaidd. Ac y bydd llai o bwysig ym Mhrydain yn y dyfodol a'r bolisïau cymdeithasol yn enwedig gyda'r llywodraeth sydd gyda ni. Mae eisiau ni fod yn ofalus iawn ac yn paratoi ein safle fel oedd yr siaradwr cyn Malin yn dweud gynne. Dwi yn bersonol yn pryderu, wel, mae fwy na pryderu, dwi'n eitha grac fy mod I yn bersonol wedi colli fy ninasyddiaeth Ewropeaidd. I'm deeply, deeply upset about losing my European citizenship. So if I can turn to my English text, I confess that the decision of January the 31st, 2020, has cast a dark shadow over my life and that of my family. We have all benefited so richly from our European citizenship and the huge pluses it has added to our lives. We've greatly valued the friendships and networks of collaboration across Europe, which we've built up over 40 years or more. The public is still unaware of the likely social and economic impact and implications of the UK's withdrawal. This should be a matter of particular concern to the millions of disabled persons living in the UK, who together with disabled persons in the EU make up 1/5 of the total EU population. The depressingly growing numbers of those with disabilities who are also at risk from rising levels of poverty throughout the EU has made this an increasingly challenging question on the EU's political agenda, to which the European Parliament has been giving its regular attention. I was personally privileged to have been responsible in the European Commission when it was decided to mainstream the rights of disabled persons in EU policy making. And then later, I chaired, together with the ONCE Foundation, wonderful foundation for the blind in Spain, the European Network of Foundations, the NEF's program of collaboration to complement the measures taken within member states to implement the then new UN Convention on the Rights of Disabled Persons. The added value of EU membership to disabled persons in the UK was given considerable impetus in the mid-1990s, when there was a significant shift of emphasis in EU disability policy away from the approach based on charity and welfare towards objectives of equality and human rights. This then led to the EU Employment Equality Directive, legislation of 2000, requiring all member states to prohibit discrimination against disability in the workplace. There is no doubt, to my mind, that this dramatically strengthened UK disability equality law. Most significantly, as a global player, the EU helped to shape the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The EU and the UK championed the case for the adoption of this convention, a perfect illustration of the significant added value of close collaboration which we have enjoyed with the EU in protecting and promoting our collective interests on the global stage. This convention was a truly landmark treaty, driving change and progress around the world. Indeed, this treaty is the only UN human rights treaty which the EU itself has ratified to date. It has meant that the EU itself has the obligation to repeal or to amend EU laws and policies which do not comply with the UN treaty, and to harness all its legislative and other tools to benefit disabled persons. As such, it has a preeminent place in EU law and serves as a powerful catalyst for further development in the future. Of course, as the previous speaker implied, the question clearly arises as to whether the UK itself will in future continue to repeal non-compliant laws and practices to apply this UN convention. This is an important area for discussion and for lobbying. I'm sure it is. So we're in total agreement on this key point. The UN Treaty has guided the content of the EU disability strategy from 2010 to 2020. And in particular, it has had a positive impact on reforming the EU's regulations governing the application of its structural and investment funds. This has helped move disabled persons out of institutions and to develop appropriate community alternatives, giving practical support to the efforts of people to live independently and to be involved in the community. The EU's contributions on the questions of accessibility have been invaluable and varied, whether relating to passenger rights and transport services, procurement processes, labeling of medicinal products, or more recently, the accessibility of websites in the public sector and access to products and services. In its progress report, which I do commend to you, the 2017 progress report on the implementation of its disability strategy, the Commission confirmed that 130 pieces of EU legislation had successfully mainstreamed disability rights. It is an important testimony to the continuing commitment of the Commission to a cross-sectoral approach on disability questions. The adoption by the EU's Council of Ministers of the Accessibility Act in April 2019, as well as the EU ratification in October 2018 of the Marrakesh Treaty, then adopted by the EU, ratified by the EU, improved access to published printed works for blind and visually impaired persons, and they are the most recent important indications of the priority accorded by the EU as a whole to the working and living conditions of disabled persons. So during 2020, while we are arguing about our own position within the UK, we can expect the EU to continue to drive it to reform the application of its structural and cohesion policies and their funding criteria, the very policies and funds from which Wales has benefited greatly over the last 20 years, from 2000 to this very year. The result of these reforms will feature in the EU's 2021 to 2027 programming arrangements and will be reflected in the future EU budget for that period. I have no doubt that it will continue to be in the interest of the UK, the self-interest of the UK, and certainly of civil society, to follow closely the positive impacts which will flow from these arrangements, so as to inspire further innovation and progress within the UK. A crucial feature of the EU's work in the field of disability over the past 30 years has been the strong commitment of the European Commission to consult disabled organizations, notably the European Disability Forum, prior to tabling its proposals in fields which affect the disabled. This has helped to ground EU action on the needs of the disabled and to enhance the legitimacy of EU disability initiatives. The regular consultations with the European Disability Forum, to which the European Commission has been committed, has ensured that it has been well informed and well equipped to propose and implement disability policies, taking into account the needs and views of disabled persons. Furthermore, it's a point that several people have raised with me, the Commission has also been providing financial support for civil society organizations to meet together and to cooperate at European level, deliberately with a view to facilitating their participation in decision-making at the EU level. What a difference from the situation in this country. I was personally involved in my post at the European Commission at the time of introducing the EU arrangement to connect senior government officials responsible for equality and disability policies, so as to share innovative ideas about disability policy and practice. This valuable practice continues to this day. I talked yesterday to the European Commission responsible for it. And I believe it will be important for the UK, with its new status as what is called a third country of the EU, to maintain its involvement by making an appropriate arrangement which now should be defined in the context of the negotiations of the new partnership agreement, which the UK government anyway hopes to decide together with the EU during the course of 2020. Following the UK's withdrawal on 31st of January this year, the UK and the EU are about to begin this negotiation process, defining the terms of their partnership for the future. This will take the form of defining precisely I'm underlining, the scope, the content, and the terms of the political declaration which was annexed to the withdrawal agreement. Media attention, and we all fall into the trap, I noticed with your reference to it, of referring to it, referring almost as if it's only a likely trade deal. It's much more than just a trade deal. Withdrawal from membership is likely to have profound consequences, which will only be somewhat clearer once the detailed terms of the new partnership are eventually decided. In fact, for most of us, Brexit has not happened and will not happen for some time. This will, in my view, involve economic, social, and cultural, as well as constitutional issues, as we increasingly realize that the Johnson mantra, "Let's get Brexit done," has been profoundly misleading, especially since the withdrawal agreement he negotiated with the EU, in fact, covered only 3 or 4 issues, important though they were, especially regarding the Irish question and the rights associated with European citizenship, whether here in the UK or on the continent. Though, as we know, that is still a lot of work to be done in that area, and there will be a session early this afternoon, quite rightly, on that subject. The Johnson political declaration, which set out the PM's limited ambition for this future relationship, is to be negotiated, if possible, by the end of 2020. For the moment, it leaves many vital issues, including security and foreign affairs cooperation, to take Russia and China as simply 2 examples, wide open at this very difficult time in terms of peace and stability in our world. Those like me, who are deeply concerned about future participation of young people and students, our universities and higher and further education institutions, in the Erasmus and Horizon research programs, are still scratching our heads in dismay at what was clearly a blind Brexit. In the political declaration, I have not found, which I read again over the weekend, I have not found a single reference to social policy issues, and certainly no reference to the prospects for disabled persons. What we do know in the context, and this was referred to earlier, so I echo it, in the context of Johnson's positioning on trade issues, is that he has several times declared his own and his government's opposition to the inclusion of social and environmental conditional clauses to which the EU attaches its total commitment. This hostility should come as absolutely no surprise, as his party has over the past 30 years consistently opposed EU initiatives to enter the fields of social and employment policy. Whether or not this approach by Johnson will in practice lead or not lead to further attempts to water down or at least revisit legislation and policies deriving from the EU, what is clear, and this here again I'm in total agreement with the previous speaker, civil society in the UK needs to be very, very alert to these dangers and ready and willing to stand up for the principles which you and they hold dear. I have continued to be angered, and I use the word angered, by the quasi-legal blockages to civil society engagement during the 2016 referendum, when the active participation of civil society, including notably that of the Welsh Council for Voluntary Organisations, was restricted, in fact blocked, because of its fears that its status and funding would be threatened for crossing the boundaries with political campaigning. Many of you may well remember this. I remember it with some degree of poignancy. To my mind, this issue has never been adequately addressed by the electoral reform bodies in its review of the conduct of the 2016 referendum. So in conclusion, let me say, the future is very unclear on the substance and components of the new partnership relationship which the UK will enjoy with the EU and our nearest neighbours, with whom we have many close natural ties in terms of values and aspirations for our societies. This is the time for Disability Wales and its counterparts in civil society across the UK to be vigilant. This is a word that's been used already, Charles, by you this morning, and I echo it, vigilant and fearless in articulating to the UK government and to the Welsh Government and Assembly the importance of our continued European collaboration to protect and promote the rights of disabled persons and their families. Let me just quickly give 5 suggestions about possible follow-up action out of our discussions today. I shall be quite brief with them to headline them because I'm conscious of the time. And I'd like to pick up, if I can, in so doing, the challenges that Milena identified in her presentation. My first point has 2 parts to it. The first part is you need to ensure that there is a totally united front or platform of human rights and disability organisations throughout the UK to press the UK government on its negotiating stance with one voice, so as to confirm the commitment of the UK government and the governments of the UK to apply the substance of the different disability-related laws and measures adopted during membership of the EU. This should be based on a thorough review of the results of European cooperation to date, a report on which should be made widely available as an official public document. I think some of the information still is not well known by many people, including within the disabled community. And the second part of this first point is that through partnership with disability and human rights organisations through the UK, to create the necessary arrangement to maintain and develop further full and regular cooperation with the European Disability Forum and other EU-level social platforms which concern the rights and interests of disabled persons. I take, for example, the European Network of Service Providers, which is a very important partner in these discussions. And I'm delighted to hear of the visit made last week from Wales to Brussels to pursue some of this discussion around such participation. But I think it needs to be embedded in our strategy of our approach for the next steps. My second point is to recommend the UK government to establish, and this is possible under the terms of what the EU is saying to the UK, to establish with the EU a joint thematic working group, including representation of disability organizations, with a view to 3 points: to continue to promote improvements to the living and working conditions of disabled persons in the UK and in the EU. Secondly, identify the scope for continuing cooperation to exchange good practice and to enhance and reinforce disability policies. And thirdly, most importantly, to monitor the effectiveness or lack of it of implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of Disabled Persons, taking into account as well the complementary commitment now of the EU and the UK to deliver the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. My third point is to recommend the UK government to seek continued active participation in both the Horizon Research and Erasmus programs, with special attention to the prioritization of the fight against climate change and the progress needed to address the global issues of health and healthcare. Fourthly, and this has been referred to, and I'm picking it up again, to recommend the UK government to build on the policies applied through the EU structural funding, both the European Regional Development Fund and the European Social Fund, to attack poverty levels and to promote social inclusion, including support for disabled persons, and to incorporate such policy provision in any replacement funding formula now to be established within the UK, taking fully into account, I agree entirely, the devolved responsibilities in these fields. It is not just, I'm pleading with you, this is not just replacing the funding, it's replacing the policies that drive the funding, which will not necessarily be reflected in UK government policy. And lastly, on the basis of all that, to provide an annual UK-wide review of implementation of this continued cooperation with the EU so that it could be evaluated progressively in consultation with the recognised platforms within the UK representing disabled persons and human rights. Thank you.
Wow.